at midnight on June 1st.
Second thing is to register for civil union, you need to be a U.S. citizen.
No. You do not need to be a citizen, you do not need to be a resident of Illinois to enter a civil union. You just need to meet all the other criteria. You need to be of age, you need to not be in a similar relationship in another jurisdiction or in Illinois.
But it doesn't help with immigration status. That's one thing. So if you're in a, okay, just to make sure people realize that, because immigration is clearly dealt through the federal level. So if one partner.
Trust me, I know.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
And then the third one, and I'm not even really sure I know how to phrase the question here, but he and I are kind of lawyered up with power of attorney for healthcare, financial. We got the joint tenancies, so the discussion about the real estate thing kind of blew our mind a little bit. What supersedes the other? Does the civil union supersede all of the agreements that he and I already have in place? Do the agreements supersede a civil union or a marriage that we undertake?
Civil unions will provide you with extra protections. Those contracts that you have, they're portable. If you have a healthcare power of attorney and you travel to Florida, that will be recognized in Florida. If you have an agreement on property that you own in Michigan, that will be recognized in Michigan. Civil unions, unfortunately, aren't portable. So they provide terrific protections and benefits when you're in the state of Illinois. They don't provide that coverage when you're out of state. So it depends on how you look at it, which one is better. But in Illinois, civil unions are great, but they're not portable. And in many instances, those type of agreements actually modify what civil unions provide. So if people have prenuptial agreements, for example, then they override the default protections provided by civil unions.
Okay. And where can I go to find more information about this whole discussion that we had on the whole real estate, joint property, joint tenancy, and whatever it was called?
If you stay tuned, just about 2 weeks ago, Equality Illinois co-hosted with the Federal Reserve Bank a discussion on financial impact of civil unions, and that was part of the questions that were addressed. We had an expert on joint tenancy by the entirety and all the other pieces, and she is working on a pamphlet based on that discussion right now. When she's finished with that, she and I are speaking at a presentation together next week. When she's finished with that, we'll post it on the clause on our website. So stay tuned, and we'll make that available hopefully very, very soon.
The other thing to be aware of, you've spoken about medical power of attorneys and power of attorneys, is that Illinois is changing the law. I can't remember if it's June 1st or June 30th, but there'll be a new power of attorney statute, which also has a new medical durable power of attorney. So if you're going to be speaking to your attorney about a deed or anything, you might also want to ask about updating your power of attorney or your medical durable power of attorney. So something to be aware of.
I'd like to narrow the focus just of the response you provided on being portable and that this provides additional protections in Illinois. But should you have agreements where for some reason there is a conflict as far as what maybe your agreement says applies in Illinois versus what state law would say about Illinois, I am assuming that the agreement you have between you would supersede that. I would like to clarify that. If there just happened to be a provision that could apply to both, while you're both within Illinois.
Well, there are certain types of agreements that, if they're considered to be against public policy, they're not enforceable. They're either voidable or void. I don't remember. It's been many years since law school. But there are certain types of agreements where, even if in prenuptial agreements, there's certain types of clauses, and I couldn't. I'm not an estate attorney, so I couldn't enumerate it for you right now. But if there are types of, just because you have an agreement doesn't mean they'll be enforced even in Illinois. If there are certain clauses that are against public policy, those clauses will not be enforceable. Like the requirements to stay in civil union, for example. You know, if you said you will stay with me, you know, until death do us part, or you will get nothing, whatever. You know, those kind of sort of forced components of it that would not be enforced.
Does it matter what county you get your license in? Does it have to be the county of your residence, or where you're doing your ceremony, or does it not matter?
It doesn't, you don't necessarily, so let's just say you wanted to go to Champaign County, because your family lives there. You just have to get the license in the same county that you are going to have your ceremony in. So, again, it doesn't matter which 102 counties you go to, you just have to make sure that the license comes from that county where you have the ceremony.
I have a simple, practical question. June 1st, I go over there, he goes over there. What must we produce, document-wise, to follow through?
You will have to establish your identity.
Right. I was just going to say you'll have to bring a license or state ID. And I think actually if you check on your county clerk's website, they will also tell you what you need to bring to prepare for it. And then in some cases, I don't know if all the county clerks are going to do this, but they may have a downloadable civil union application form so that when you get there, you can have it filled out and the process will go a little bit quicker. So I would just recommend to everybody, just try and check back on your county clerk's website just to make sure. Because they, from my understanding, they either have these up or will have them up pretty soon. So it will say then what you need to bring as well.
And we're monitoring this, and we already know that many county websites already have a button saying civil unions coming June 1st, get your application today. Many county clerks are as excited about this as we are, so check your website.
Will getting a civil union affect what has to go through probate, or is that a federal issue?
I think probably that's state issues. Yeah.
Okay. And on your website, do you have a list of people who can perform the official ceremonies?
Great question.
We do for clergy. So if you're looking at either a synagogue or a church or non-denominational sanctuary, we have that listed, and it's under our Faith and Freedom tab.
One question that I had was, when we looked into getting married in Canada, they had required some extensive documentation of a previous marriage, heterosexual marriage. Is the same applicable, right, the fact that I am divorced now, is that applicable to the paperwork that needs to be provided in Illinois? Do I have to show documentation of being divorced at the courthouse in order to be able to get?
If you were in a previously substantially similar relationship, you will have to establish that you are no longer in a relationship. I think the law right now says is you will have to state or affirm or certify whatever. I don't know that they require you to show a decree of divorce.
Okay, so you're pretty sure that's right.
Okay, I understand that marriage, sorry, we're in
There's two different microphones.
marriage in Illinois is recognized in all 50 states, and a divorce of that marriage can be done in any of the 50 states. If you get a civil union in Illinois, it is not necessarily recognized in all 50 states, but a divorce of a civil union can be done in any of the 50 states. Is that fair?
No.
No.
You have to have a divorce of the civil union in Illinois.
Those states which will recognize your relationship will dissolve the relationship. But Illinois civil union statute has a provision that if you get a civil union in Illinois, you go somewhere else and you just dissolve it, you can come back to Illinois, Illinois will dissolve it for you, even though neither one of you is a
Then the question would also bring another one. I get a divorce of the civil union in Illinois and then subsequently move to a state that doesn't recognize civil unions. Will that state then enforce the divorce decree from Illinois? Because if they didn't recognize a civil union, why should they recognize a divorce?
Well, you need that protection for yourself, in that just because you move to another state and then you think, well, the relationship, and I wish this would not be the case for any of you, but if you move to another state, civil union couple, and then your relationship ends, and you say, well, we live in Florida, doesn't recognize us, why bother? Well, you're going to travel to some jurisdiction one day that doesn't recognize civil unions, and you don't want to be in that position where if that separation gets hostile, where your property can be considered in some states to still be jointly owned, where in some states it may still be held for. In Illinois, you don't want those things to be brought in Illinois if one of the partners returns to Illinois. So if a relationship ends, you need to proceed with the proper process as you would if you were a married couple.
But the divorce would be enforced by another state as though it were a marriage.
It probably would not be.
I mean, purpose of child support or spousal support, it wouldn't.
The spousal support, child support orders and spousal support orders, they're orders of a court. So for the purpose of orders of a court, that order of a court has to be given,
Full faith and credit.
yeah.
Okay, I'm
Do clergy need anything special to perform civil union besides?
Nope.
being one?
Oh, it's easy.
So we can assume that both the ladies can agree to have a civil union with me, and at some point in the future, marriage will become legal in Illinois. And do you have any sense of where we have to dissolve the civil union to become married? Could we roll it into a marriage contract? Well, maybe not going to answer that, but just
Right, I don't think we can fully say 100%, but I would think that, you know, the caveat would then be, you know, if you were in a civil union, it would then automatically become a marriage. But again, you know, because that is not, at this point, you know, viable, we can't say that 100%.
And the way that the statute is written right now, it sort of like creates expectations that most likely it would just become recognized as a marriage.
In answer to the question up front, where would you find somebody to officiate? I am a wedding celebrant, and I would love to officiate at any civil union, anywhere, anytime, starting June 2nd.
Yeah, and this is Dale, those of you that are around the Palatine area. My wife, Ia, is also a celebrant and would be happy to perform those. So I'm not trying to run Hillary out of business, right? Yeah.